Mendenhall, Mississippi. Population just over 2,000. The kind of town where people still wave from their porches. Where a teenager doing yard work for an elderly couple down the road is not unusual. It's expected. It's neighborly. It's what small towns are built on. On the morning of June 3, 2026, that trust ended in gunfire. By the time the sun set that day, an elderly husband and wife were dead inside their own home. A 17-year-old boy who had once cleaned their property was in police custody, and a quiet corner of Simpson County had become the center of a case that would raise hard questions about warning signs, second chances, and whether anyone could have stopped what happened before it started. This is the story of the Mendenhall killings. Tuesday, June 3rd began like any other for the Blair family. Billy Blair was 74 years old. His wife, Virginia Carol Blair, known to those close to her simply as Carol, was 71. Married, rooted in their community. The kind of couple neighbors described without hesitation as good people. That morning, 3 contractors arrived at the Blair residence with a job to do: install a generator. It was routine work. Nothing about the morning suggested anything was wrong. Until they noticed the car. Carol Blair's vehicle was parked outside, but the driver's side door was open. And inside on the seats were several firearms. Not stored, not secured, simply left in plain view. It was enough to make the contractors uneasy. Enough that, at approximately 11:30 in the morning, they picked up the phone and called the Simpson County Sheriff's Department. Not to report a crime, just to request a welfare check. A precaution, a gut feeling that something wasn't right. They had no way of knowing how right they were. By noon, deputies from the Simpson County Sheriff's Department arrived at the property to carry out the welfare check. It was gunfire. According to an investigator with the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, officers were met with shots fired the moment they approached. What began as a routine check on an elderly couple's safety became something else entirely. A standoff that would stretch on for nearly 2 hours. For those 2 hours, the small town of Mendenhall held its breath. Roads were shut down, residents were told to stay inside. Law enforcement worked to contain a situation that had, within moments, escalated beyond anything the responding deputies could have anticipated. Inside that house were 2 bodies. Outside, a perimeter of officers negotiating with or attempting to contain whoever remained inside. Eventually, the standoff broke. A suspect emerged. He ran. He did not get far. Officers apprehended a 17-year-old boy attempting to flee the property. At the moment of his capture, according to investigators, he was unarmed. His name, Cordarius Hobbs. What deputies found inside the home, once it was finally safe to enter, was worse than anyone standing outside that afternoon could have imagined. Billy Blair was found in the kitchen of his own home. He was lying on his back. He had been shot 3 times in the face. His wife, Carol, was found in a bedroom. She was curled into a fetal position. She had been shot 3 times in the back of the head. There is no version of this scene that reads as anything other than what investigators have alleged it to be: an execution. The details were laid out in court by a Mississippi Bureau of Investigation official during a preliminary hearing the following month. Details that would become central to both the prosecution's case and later, to questions raised by the defense. We want to be direct with you here. This is an active criminal case. Cordarius Hobbs has been charged. He has not been convicted. Under the law, he is presumed innocent unless and until a jury finds otherwise. Everything that follows in this documentary reflects allegations, courtroom testimony, and law enforcement statements. It is not a determination of guilt. With that said, here is what the record shows so far. Perhaps the most disturbing element of this case isn't the violence itself. It's the relationship that came before it. Cordarius Hobbs was not a stranger to Billy and Carol Blair. According to testimony from Hobbs' own family members, given during a preliminary hearing in July, the teenager had previously worked for the Blairs. He cleaned around their property. He did odd jobs. He was, by every account given in that courtroom, a familiar face around their home, not an intruder, but someone they had welcomed in. Billy Newsom, Hobbs' grandfather, testified that he believed his grandson had been called out to the property that very day to work, and that he believes his grandson is innocent of what happened next. It's a claim that sits at the center of this case's emotional weight. Was this a betrayal of trust by someone the Blairs had taken a chance on? Or is Hobbs, as his family and legal counsel maintain, innocent of the killings, present at a scene where something else entirely unfolded? But investigators had their own concerns about Hobbs, concerns that, according to documents obtained through law enforcement channels, predated June 3rd by a significant margin. An incident report obtained from the Simpson County Sheriff's Department paints a picture of a teenager who was already on law enforcement's radar, well before the events of June 3rd. According to that report, Hobbs was described by deputies as a troubled juvenile. He had already been named a suspect in what the report characterizes as many burglaries and vehicle thefts in the surrounding area. This was not, according to the documentation, the first time deputies in Simpson County had encountered his name. It raises a question this documentary cannot answer for you, but one worth sitting with. How many warning signs precede a tragedy like this one? And how often do they go unheeded, simply because nothing yet has crossed the line from property crime into violence? For the Blair family, and for a small Mississippi town still processing what happened, that question may never have a satisfying answer. Cordarius Hobbs now faces capital murder charges, 1 count for each of his alleged victims, in addition to burglary and several other felony charges connected to the events of June 3rd. A judge has denied him bond. At 17 years old, Hobbs finds himself facing the most serious charge that exists under Mississippi law, a charge that carries the weight of the state's most severe penalties. But a charge is not a conviction, and in the courtroom, this case is already proving to be more contested than it may first appear. Hobbs' attorney Zachary Vaughn has been clear and consistent in his public statements about his client. Vaughn has described his interactions with Hobbs as entirely ordinary. A young man who has, in his words, been respectful and courteous in every meeting they've had. But Vaughn's defense goes beyond character. Following a court hearing, he raised a specific and pointed challenge to the prosecution's case. The absence, he argued, of direct forensic evidence tying his client to the killings. Vaughn went further, focusing on a detail from the crime scene itself. He noted that one of the victims had been shot twice on one side of the head and once on the other side. To Vaughn, that detail raises a possibility the prosecution has not yet ruled out in open court. That someone else may have been present in that house on June 3rd. His argument in essence is this: presence at a scene is not the same as pulling a trigger. And so far, he contends, prosecutors have not proven who did. It is a defense strategy still unfolding. Whether it holds up will be determined not in the press, and not in this documentary, but in a Mississippi courtroom, in the months ahead. In a town of just over 2,000 people, everyone is close to everyone else. The Blairs weren't anonymous victims. They were neighbors, co-workers, members of a community small enough that news like this doesn't stay contained to a single street. It moves through the whole town within hours. Those who knew Billy and Carol Blair described them in the simplest terms possible. They were good people. People who, by every account given so far, extended trust to a teenage boy in their community by giving him work, by letting him onto their property, by treating him, in whatever small way, as one of their own. Whether that trust was betrayed, or whether Cordarius Hobbs, as his family insists, innocent of the violence that took Billy and Carol Blair's lives, is a question that the state of Mississippi will now have to answer in a court of law. This case remains active. Cordarius Hobbs has not been convicted of any crime, and under the law he remains presumed innocent until a jury determines otherwise. As this case moves through the Mississippi court system, new evidence, new testimony, and new developments may reshape the picture we have today. We will continue to follow this story as it develops. If you have any information related to this case, you are encouraged to contact the Simpson County Sheriff's Department directly. Rest in peace, Billy and Carol Blair. Subscribe to Behind the Case File for more true crime investigations covered with accuracy and respect.